So I'm always amazed when studying impactful people, which is what you and I are going to do over the next 3 days. I'm always amazed when studying impactful people to learn ultimately the journeys that they travel on and all that we can learn from them through their journey, through their travels, right? So, like as I was studying St. Patrick, as I'm learning more about his story and his journey and how he got to where he was to be able to ultimately convert thousands and make an impact to where we still celebrate his death. We celebrate his life through on the day of his death. Thousands of years later, as I study that, I put myself in his shoes and I reflect a little bit. Like, think about being 16 years old. Think about being kidnapped and taken away. Think about being downtrodden. Think about the despair. Think about the fear that had to be in his heart. Think about what it was like to ultimately be a slave. Now, I do want you to understand that slavery looked a lot different. Irish Gaelic slavery looked a lot different than what you're probably picturing right now. My guess is when you first hear the word slavery, you picture boats and chains and whips and things like that. But this slavery was a little bit different back then, actually quite a bit different. You see, back then there were three classes of people that existed in Ireland, and the people that didn't have a clan, like if they weren't a part of a community, if they weren't united together in some way, shape, or form, maybe they were some type of an outcast of some sort. If they weren't a part of one of the three, if they weren't a part of a clan, then they fell into basically the lowest of the three clans, or the lowest of the three classes, sorry. And what that was called was Adair Fuidir. Can you guys say that? Can you say that this morning? Can you say Adair Fuidir? So this was the lowest of the three classes, and that lowest class of the three classes was actually broken down into two different types of classes, even amongst that lowest class. So you had the Se'er and the Do-Er. Can you say that with me this morning? Can you say Se'er and Do-Er? Now, the Do-Er, actually you could pronounce it if you want now, the Doer, were the ones that were closest to the slaves. Now, see, at this point in time, as a slave, it was actually, endorsed that you could progress. You could progress through the classes. You could actually get promoted. It was not criminal for a slave to ultimately emancipate at this point. They were encouraged to do so. So, yes, you were enslaved. Yes, you were a doer. Yes, you had to work to earn your keep. Yes, there was restrictions to your freedoms. All of those things existed, but they were encouraged to rise and develop and ultimately earn their freedom. Now, see, if you were on your way up the ladder, if you were working your way up the chain, if you were developing and you were earning your freedom and then you misbehaved, like you got in a fight or you committed a criminal act, if anything like that happened, then you got knocked back down. Right? You got knocked back down within the classes, but you had this ability to rank up, not like the slavery that you're picturing in your mind right now, where you had no ability for freedom, you had no ability to rank up, there was no education, there was no progression. That's not the way that it worked back then, right? So you had this ability to rise. Think about jail. Think about jail but add in lots of work. Instead of sitting around for 23 hours a day doing nothing, you were actually working. You were contributing to society. You had a little bit of freedom and ultimately a chance for parole as you progressed through the ranks. And see, this is where St. Patrick finds God. He finds God at the bottom, at the pit. The pit of despair, considered the lowest class in the area. And once he finds God, and once he travels through the ranks, and once he puts in his dues and he develops as a human being, he travels back home. Now, I think about this component too. I think, my goodness, think about the shame, right? Think about the shame with which he has to go back home. What's up, Scott Simons? Great to see you, sir. How you doing, Gail Beecraft? Think about the shame. He goes back home, and we don't know exactly the story. He says he was kidnapped by pirates. Ultimately is what he says, but I don't know. 16 years old, maybe didn't get along with his parents so well. His dad was a priest. Maybe he wasn't quite believing the whole God thing. I don't know. Maybe this was a journey he chose. We don't really know. All of the history and the story that we have of St. Patrick was written by himself, so it's his version of the truth. But I think now here he is. He goes back 6 years later after being a slave, after experiencing that whole thing, that whole loss of freedom and the downtrodden and the despair and the fear that comes along with the situation that he had placed himself in. After traveling 200 miles to go beg somebody to give him a ride back home. So I think about how he goes home with the shame and the embarrassment, but ultimately when he gets back home, he dives in. He dives in and he studies, and he starts to develop himself even more. And this is the part that I think is the most important. Don't miss this. He goes back and impacts the world forever. He goes back to the country that enslaved him, to the country that took away his freedoms, to the country where he had to work and to develop. He goes back to the bottom, to that place that he had gotten out of, that he traveled 200 miles. He goes back and ultimately impacts the world forever. You see, friends, St. Patrick's journey, it inspires me in 3 key ways that I want to share with you today. 3 key takeaways that I want you to take with you as you go out there today into the world and into the country and into all of the things that we all know that we're facing. And the first key point that I want you to remember is St. Patrick, he was down, but he wasn't out. He never gave up. No matter what the situation was, no matter what he faced, no matter what he had to do, whether it was he to earn his ranks from being a slave in the lowest class to leveling up, whether it be to traveling 200 miles in hopes of finding someone, that would carry him across the sea. No matter how much shame he had, no matter how downtrodden, no matter how much he beat himself up, no matter how much of a lack of freedom that he had, even in the face of all of those restrictions, he used that time to develop. He used that time to grow. And he never gave up. He never lost hope. Friends, right now, we as a country are starting to deal with some different restrictions. We're facing restrictions that we maybe never imagined, restrictions that we never thought, I got the wrong slide up there, restrictions that we never thought we'd have to face before. There are some freedoms that currently we are losing. And what I want to challenge you to do is I want to challenge you to take this opportunity to grow and develop. Use this opportunity, this slowdown per se. Use this opportunity to become better at your craft. Use this opportunity to dive in and to study and learn success from historic people. I challenge you to use this opportunity to become the absolute best version of yourself that you can possibly be. You see, when St. Patrick was a slave, when he was at the bottom, with all of his freedoms taken away from him, he used that time to develop ultimately into a human being that made a massive impact on this planet. I challenge you to do the same. The second key takeaway from St. Patrick in this journey that I want to share with you, that I want you to walk away with today. Where did my slide go? It was there. It was there just a second ago. Sorry. I don't know where it went. But that's okay. We'll just go on without it. Yeah, we're going to have to. Sorry about that. The second key takeaway is that St. Patrick, once he was strong enough, right? He was enslaved. He goes back home. He dives into his books. He studies other successful people. He develops. He starts to get a better understanding of God. He reads the Bible. He connects spiritually. He does all of those things. And once he does, he goes back and he teaches. You see, he understood in order to progress as a human being, in order for him to progress and live the absolute best life that he could, he had to serve others. You see, his knowledge and wisdom kept to himself meant nothing. He had to go back and share it with others. So I'm challenging you today as a leader or an expert. If you are a leader in your field, and I see some leaders doing this already. I see Brian doing this already, Brian Benstock. I see Liza doing this already. I see Scott doing this already. But I want to challenge you. If you are a leader or an expert in any area, it's time for you to teach. It's time for you to teach. I need you to use technology. I need you to use platforms like Zoom or social media. It's time for you to get your experience and your wisdom and all that knowledge and share it with the rest of the world. That's how you can make an impact. While people are home, while people are not gathering, while people are in a slow down state, while some of our freedoms are restricted, you're going to have a lot more eyeballs and a lot more opportunities to reach and connect with people. You see, you've got people that are going to be sitting, that are going to be absorbing, that are going to be taking in content and information. And a lot of that information can be scary. It can be fearful. And so right now is a time for leaders to rise up and to be a light and to be a positive channel, to take this time, this slowdown, and use it to help people develop. So I challenge you, if you're an expert in anything. I saw somebody yesterday, one of our friends, one of our Rise and Grind members, she had a bunch of drums. She's an expert at making music with drums, and she was sitting there with her drums, and she was interacting with people, and she was saying, "Tell me your favorite animal and why you love it." And she was making little songs about animals. And man, I just thought, man, what an opportunity we have. What an opportunity. We've got a captive audience on one side that is looking for information. And now we have an opportunity as leaders to pour into them, to help develop them, to share our wisdom, the things that we know so that we can make their lives better. I challenge you today, if you are an expert or you are a leader, to let your voice be heard and make a difference in somebody's life. The third takeaway from St. Patrick that I want to share with you today is it was the journey itself that made him a saint. Prior to that, he was just a slave. As he went through this journey and as he connected with God, he became so much stronger. And united, they were able to make a massive impact on this planet. That's the key. The key is we need to unite at times like this to make a difference in other people's lives, to serve today. It is cold out here. Listen, in what can only be defined as one of the most historic times in America, I believe it would behoove us as not only Americans, but humans, to come together for a brief moment and let's discuss the matters at hand. Though unprecedented in its nature, the pandemic we face as a race is one that is filled with mistrust and confusion. Mistrust and confusion that has ultimately been fueled by the limitless access we now have to information, both reliable and unreliable on a global scale. I mean, I'm talking social media, news outlets, word of mouth, like each now have the ability to spread the news of a virus faster than the virus itself. But like the virus itself, it is the news of its presence that activates the human body, mind, and spirit. You see, when the body, the flesh, is infected with a virus of any kind, ultimately the alarm sound and the flesh itself mobilizes in an effort to survive. And this is no different than what you're seeing around the world today. As people of every nationality, color, creed, they're ransacking any and all available goods, leaving retailers' shelves empty and the human beings' pantries are full. Now, see, when the body, the flesh is infected, your brain, it begins to calculate the risks. It starts to shut off unnecessary functions and analyze its systems and data and raise or lower the thermostat of its ecosystem to adjust for the upcoming fight. You call it a fever. This is no different than what our government is doing for our country and other nations are doing for theirs. They're shutting off unnecessary functions like sporting events, large gatherings, governmental systems. They're analyzing the infected and the virus itself, collecting data, and then making adjustments to our ecosystems in order to prepare for an upcoming battle. You see, when the body's infected, your spirit shifts. One who's normally upbeat, jovial, and kind might suddenly become sullen and distraught. One who lacks a connection with God may begin to seek a better understanding. The tyrant becomes bitter, the extrovert reclusive, and even the most hopeful can start to lose hope. This is no different than what's happening around the world. The spirit of man is being doused. Neighbors are locking their doors and being consumed with worry. Prayer circles are breaking out online, and discussions of the rapture of God are becoming rampant. Those with anger in their hearts are lashing out at those with different ideas, concepts, beliefs. People are buckling down, retracting their reach, and beginning to question their future. They're ultimately losing hope. Now, I don't bring this to your attention to tell you what to do or not to do. I'm not here to agree with you or disagree with your actions or your thoughts. I'm simply here in hopes that through the power of words, I can help you see that all that is going on in the world today is the result of one unified race acting as one body. One unified race made of billions of cells per se, or individuals, each with its own individual purpose. One unified race that together can combat all things that seek to threaten its existence. I'm talking one unified race that requires each and every individual to move and act in the way that they were designed for the greater good of the whole. It's one. You see, this isn't your problem or my problem. This is a problem. And how we each derive solutions for it has value and adds value to our overall existence. You see, I believe as we create solutions for Corona, we also have an opportunity to create solutions for our species. For far too long now, we've been acting as separate entities divided by politics, economic status, and the color of our skin. We've been acting independently without thought or concern for one another, each literally living in our own little bubbles. But not now. Not now. Now we all understand that we cannot afford to allow ourselves to become torn apart when under attack. You see, there's no room for finger-pointing, blame, or shame. There is only an opportunity for us to come together in a way that unites us rather than one that tears us apart. One nation, under God, indivisible. As the coming days unfold, it is of the utmost importance that we each take time to reflect on the opportunity we have ahead. Coronavirus, dude, it's gonna come and go, but humanity in all its glory will continue on. Let us all allow this moment to be a defining one for our nation. And as for civilization as a whole, let's let it go down in history as the days when the lines that once divided us, those all became blurred and ultimately erased. Let it be a generational shift. Almost fell. Let it be a generational shift where generations look back in awe at how we managed to take a potentially devastating attack and used it to form a peaceful world filled with gratitude and abundance. An abundance of love for our fellow man and the gratitude of knowing that we are all children of God, placed together on this earth to help each other rise, evolve, and make a massive impact on this planet. Let's do this, man. This is a time to unite, to come together, and we need our leaders to step up. We need our leaders to step up, and even though we might slip every once in a while, we might slip and we might fall down. We need our leaders to step up. Let's use the time to grow, to learn, to develop. Let's do it, and let's do it all together. Listen, my friend, you are a child of God, the God of the universe, the God who made everything. Made you to be the absolute best version of yourself that you can possibly be. And listen, it matters. All of the decisions that you make, seemingly small, they make an impact. They make an impact on your friends, on your family members. You've made an impact on me by just being here with me today. Man, I needed this. Man, I needed this. I needed your energy. I needed your fuel. I needed your encouragement. I need this. Together, we're going to get through this. And we can get through, not just get through it, but together we can become better because of it. And ultimately go out there and make an impact in the world.